Ich begrüße Sie alle ganz herzlich zu diesem heutigen Abend, auf den wir uns sehr gefreut haben. Ich mache die Introduction in Deutsch und dann switchen wir in das Englische hinüber. Maria Veits hat bei uns gearbeitet und gelebt 2,5 Monate lang und wir wollen sie gar nicht mehr missen. Sie ist über ein Stipendium zu uns gekommen. Das ist EUNIC, ich weiß nicht, ob Sie das kennen, EUNIC, und da geht es im Grunde um die Vernetzung europäischer Kulturinstitute. Und auch um Fragen der Integration der neuen Mitgliedstaaten und so weiter. Und sie ist darüber komplett praktisch finanziert, zu uns geschickt worden, um bei uns mitzuarbeiten und auch unsere kuratorische Praxis hier kennenzulernen. Aber vor allem hat sie uns unterstützt. Dazu sage ich gleich noch was. Sie hat praktisch eine ganz besondere Rolle als freie Kuratorin. Sie nennt sich auch Kuratorin, Forscherin und Soziologin. Und schon wenn Sie die Ausbildung angucken, die sie genossen hat, ich kann es auf Deutsch sagen, weil sie kennt ihren Lebenslauf. Ich habe ja auch vorher gesagt, was ich erzähle. Sie hat zum Beispiel ein Soziologiestudium auch absolviert, und zwar in St. Petersburg an der Universität. 2007 bis 2011. Und seit 2010 bis zur Gegenwart ist sie in dem Creative Association of Curators TOC. Und das ist eine sehr freie Auffassung von dem, was zur kuratorischen Praxis dazugehört. Also ein bisschen anders eigentlich, als wir es vielleicht sehen, gehört zum Beispiel auch ganz stark so die Aspekte von Education und Bildung mit dazu, aber auch Fundraising. Und also es ist sehr umfassend und es hat immer zu tun auch mit der Analyse der gesellschaftlichen Wirklichkeit. Sie war schon in der ganzen Welt mit Internships und zum Beispiel in Israel jetzt gerade März 2013 bis Juni 2013 Israeli Center for Digital Art. Und sie war über mehrere Summer Schools, war sie einerseits in Moskau, dann über Fulbright nochmal in Moskau, dann in Oslo. Hat sich also auch sehr viel mit skandinavischen Aspekten befasst in ihrer Vita. Und ja, mir fiel immer wieder auf, auch dass das Education als Thema für sie eine wichtige Rolle spielt. Zum Beispiel towards the Lifelong Learning Society in Europe, the contribution of the education system, hat sie für die Tallinn-Universität, hat sie da einen Kongress mit organisiert. Und wir waren fasziniert von ihrer Vielseitigkeit und vor allem hat sie uns auch wunderbar unterstützt bei der Entwicklung der Ausstellung Kandinsky, Malevich, Mondrian, der weiße Abgrund und Endlichkeit, die wir ja Anfang April eröffnen werden. Heute wird es so sein, dass es einen zweiten Teil geben wird, in der Andrea Knobloch wiederum für die Düsseldorfer Kunstszene das Projekt Gasthof-Worringer-Straße vortragen wird. Und dann werden die beiden in einer Art Analogie, in einem Vergleich hinterher ins Gespräch kommen und die Bedingungen in St. Petersburg und in Düsseldorf miteinander vergleichen. So, Maria, we were so thankful that you were supporting our team and living and working with us, and we hope that our exchange will continue. So we just started our digital magazine on Monday, number 32. If you haven't seen it yet, you have to try on Kunstsammlung Nordrhein-Westfalen, number 32. And we hope also that you will stay as an author and report from the Russian art scene and from everywhere in the world. And so I'm very glad that you're here and doing a lecture for us tonight.
Thank you. Oh my God, after this introduction, I feel like I should win a Nobel Prize or something. Thank you, Marianne, so much for this. Hello, everyone. So nice to see such a big crowd on a Thursday night after this pouring rain. I'm very grateful that you made it and made an effort to come here to Schmela House tonight. We're going to talk about something I believe we didn't discuss at Schmela House before, socially engaged art and art in public spaces and social practices in art. And I will present what's happening in St. Petersburg in this area because my organization is involved a lot into projects that deal with art in public spaces. I will just very briefly introduce what we do. Creative Association of Curators Talk is a very small organization. We're just 2 people. Yes, but we have a big name, and we deal a lot with quite large-scale projects. We do projects that deal with visual arts and that are research-based and try to work a lot in the public sphere and the public spaces. And I'll get back to that a little bit later. And we do pay a lot of attention to research and education because we think that since there's not so much going on in terms of education in the field of contemporary art in Russia, one of our kind of missions is also to contribute to this process and bring a lot of many acclaimed international artists in curation to Russia in order to maintain this dialogue between international and European artists and curators and Russian audience, especially young artists and young curators who are still taught to very, traditional principles in the arts. Speaking about public art, the topic of our today's discussion, I would like to point out that public art has becoming more and more popular in Russia. We are tending, to do things later than the rest of the world sometimes. So when everyone was already very much involved into doing a project in the public space, we were just starting. And most of the projects that were dealing with the public space were mainly done in the center of the city. And if some of you have been to St. Petersburg and know anything about its history, you probably know that St. Petersburg was the first city in Russia built according to a master plan. So it's, lots of Italian architects were invited to build the city. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. Northern Venice, European capital of Russia, blah, blah, blah. We have all of this. Statues. But this is only the center of the city. The outskirts and most of the projects, like, for example, this piece by Florian Hoffmann, a guy who's very famous for his large-scale pieces, it was all done in the city center. Also, another project of public art prospect done by our colleagues dealt with the historical part of the city. However, the city is surrounded by this gray zone of ugly block buildings that were mainly built in the starting from the 60s when the city was expanding, and after the Second World War, when so many people died during the siege, many people were invited from the villages and smaller cities to St. Petersburg, to Leningrad, to kind of restore the population. So many people were arriving, many houses were built. It was supposed to be done very fast, and there are so many ugly, typical buildings in St. Petersburg that actually look like that. I'll get more pictures just in a little bit. These districts are hugely populated. They're very large. They're big houses, and it has no kind of correlation to this city center life, because it's very different. It's quite dull. Nothing's happening there in terms of arts and culture. All such things are happening in the center. And this is a big problem for such a huge city as St. Petersburg, which is, how many are we by now? I believe 5 million or more. Because in order to get into any art activity, you have to go to the city center. And on your weekend, you think, I'm going to the city center every day for work. Should I go there to have fun as well? Should I go to the city center to take the same route to go to a museum? Should I go there to see something nice? So most of the people who live in the dormant districts don't really get out of them during their free time. So our main mission, the main mission of this critical mass project, which is a large-scale project of public art, was to bring contemporary art to the people and not to make them come to these beautiful places. One of our main ideas was to invite artists, an international group of artists, to various dormant districts of the city and ask them to work with the local context of these places and these territories, because they have maybe shorter history than the city center, but they definitely have some history and some stories and people who live there and are interesting. So what we wanted to do is to create this kind of new cultural map for this new districts and make them more attractive for the people who live there. We also wanted to engage people who live there, to engage local communities into the creative process, because we think that, and our research has also shown that, and not only ours, but many people who work with public art know that engaging local communities into producing an art piece is also very beneficial, as for the artist, as for the community, as for the art project in general, because then people tend to create this, sense of ownership over this piece, and they are not inclined to destroying it, because the idea of public art is that it's actually standing somewhere insecured and it's not protected and there's no fence around it. So if you contributed to creating a piece, this is very unlikely that at some point you're going to destroy it if it's left unattended. So the project was first started in 2009 when we invited the first group of artists for research for the short-term residencies to St. Petersburg, and asked them to look at the city from their own perspective. Of course, we also gave them some, framework and asked them to work with the present kind of problems of the city and, traffic, environment, history, preserving cultural heritage, freedom of speech, because this is an ongoing issue in Russia and something that we all should talk about. Every exhibition, so far we had just two in 2011, 2013. The next one is going to be in 2015. Every exhibition is based on a research which is done by the group of artists, curators, and researchers that take part in the project. Between the exhibitions, we try to have lots of parallel events when we discuss tendencies in contemporary public art and invite local and international artists to give artist talks or seminars or public discussions. And each exhibition results in the publication. I just have one catalog left, and this is a copy of Andrea Klomloch. So I will just probably pass it around so you could take a look, but please don't lose it because I have to give it back to Andrea in the end. So. Yeah, in 2011, when we just started the project, we mainly concentrated on big, large-scale, bright pieces, because the concept of public art back then was quite new for the city. People didn't quite know what it is. It was quite uncommon to have art pieces in open spaces, so we started mainly with parks, and we actually, it wasn't our idea, but there was just the concept that the artists, all of them came to in the end, and they created large-scale installations and objects in public spaces that were, this is their research, they did a lot of investigation in the city premises in various districts of the city. For example, this one, it's an empty postament. There used to be a Lenin statue here. So as you know, in the 90s, when we had all of our ideology, collapsing, most of the monuments of Lenin were removed from where they were. And this postament just stood there for, I think, about maybe 15 years or something. And then one Finnish artist, Kuratorin Kapurhanin, he was very curious about what it is, and he created this piece, which actually was a very good representation of the current ideology of Russian society in 2011, which was quite consumerist back then. These are the, I'm not sure about the English word, but this is the, well, every wheel of a car has this thing, and so he assembled this. He assembled this big egg out of them and put it on this postament, and that was like a new idea of this growing consumerism in the Russian society. And by then, St. Petersburg was already surrounded by 5 new car factories, actually, which were producing enormous amount of cars. The city is now stuck in traffic. It's very difficult to travel, in the morning and in the evening from and to work. So there was a piece that actually, fit really well in the place of the Lenin statue. And the surrounding people just loved it. They would be, I live nearby, so I would be catching some phrases like, okay, I'll see you at 5 by the egg, So that means that we really made this new spot, this old spot, like a new spot that people put into their, everyday landscape. So they gave it a local name. They would notice it. They really liked it. And we were very happy with this piece because it really fitted well into the concept of the show. And it looked really nice, I must say. Another one that I wanted to pay your attention to was the piece by Lars Ramberg. And he dealt a lot with the problem of freedom of speech in 2011. Which was before Pussy Riot and before all the nasty things that happened to us. I'll get back to that. But 2011 was quite fine, and that was the year when the President Medvedev said that, we should really have Hyde Parks in Moscow and St. Petersburg. This is such a good idea. We'll just have them for people. They will be able to come to parks and speak out, and, we'll create these corners of freedom of speech. And Lars, I don't know, he found that in the news or somehow he heard this announcement by Medvedev. So he said, okay, I'm going to do it. The president of Russia said you should have Hyde Parks. I'm a Norwegian artist, and I'm going to do Hyde Parks for you guys. Okay. So he created this piece which consisted of, maybe 500 of wooden boxes, and all of them had engravings that dealt with freedom of speech. And there were some proverbs. It's all in Russian, but it's, journalism. It's too early to talk about. Basic principles of freedom. So all of these engravings were dealing with the freedom of speech and, freedom of media, all of these issues. So Lars intended this piece as, really a piece that will be interactive and that people will use like this, because the idea of Hyde Park is that you take a small box and you can be seen, so you can speak up. But the audience interpreted our idea in a very different way because they used it as a playground for kids. First, they disassembled it completely and were using it for parties and beer drinking, and then the children came, so they thought it was a huge pyramid, so they just, were really playing with that. And I think that if we had this piece now in 2013, maybe it had a different meaning, because between the two exhibitions, lots of things changed. We had the presidential elections, which were very much of a fraud. We had protests. We had people imprisoned for this protest. So being in public space and working in public space for artists and curators has become much more of a political issue. And when you work in Russia and your work deals with public space, you have to have a permission from the government. Even if you have a small action or a small piece, or you work with a piece which is temporary, you still have to have a permission that you collect from numerous bureaucratical institutions. And if in 2011 that wasn't really much of a problem, even though it was a long process, in 2013, when we approached this local municipality of this district, Cucina, it was a much bigger problem. But I'll get back to that. Cucina, the venue for the show in 2013, is a huge dormant district. It was started to being built in the 60s, and then they continued in the 70s, and then 80s and 90s. It's huge. About 500,000 people live there, so you can imagine the scale. It used to have a very negative reputation. Neighborhood was, lots of criminals, lots of drug addicts, lots of poor people, lots of crime. However, later, when the city was growing and developers were building much more buildings there and were trying to sell, they were trying to kind of, convert this bad reputation to something good. We have a large green area here, it's good for families and so on. So the identity of this dormant district started to change a little bit. And this is what we wanted to play with in our exhibition. So the Cucina looks like this, mainly most time of the year, not very welcoming. It's huge. It's really big. And it's not very diverse. I mean, it's mostly houses. There's nothing more than just houses and, parking lots and huge shopping malls. So it's not the neighborhood of one's dream or something. Rather ugly. So we invited a group of artists who work a lot with communities and problematic neighborhood to join the exhibition this year, and all of them came to the research, and we showed them some main spots in the neighborhood. And our concept for this exhibition in 2013 was to work with this identity of a dormant district, to work with its history, even though it's recent, work with the community, and also work with some public institutions that are located here, because we didn't want to have everything, in the outside, because then you have to have huge amount of permissions, and you cannot leave your work there forever. You have to remove it after the show is over. We wanted this show to be more sustainable, and we wanted to work with the venues like schools or libraries that would host this works and that would keep them for a longer time, not just the months, and this is the length of the show. The main aims that I just outlined. And one of the main ideas was to kind of create this new map of interesting locations in the dormant districts, and to tell more to the neighborhood about their history, to tell people more about what actually there is there in Cucina, instead of just saying that Cucina is bad. So we wanted to, find out and dig out some interesting stories and kind of implement them into the everyday life of the neighborhood. The main problems that we faced were of the governmental level, sort of, because all of the venues that we picked for the show, a library, a cinema theater, a vocational school, a secondary public school, were very welcoming. They were very enthusiastic, and they said, of course, we want to be a part of the project. We want your artists to come, and we want them to, create a piece for our school, and children will be, of course, participating, and so on. So they were very happy about that. The main problem was the local municipality, which started to be very worried with what we're going to present, because they said we are girls. They said to us, well, and girls already has a negative connotation because everyone referred to Pussy Riot as girls in the media, so girls dancing in the church. So they said to us, girls, we're not sure what exactly are you going to show to us? We said, well, we don't know yet. You know, artists are going to come, they're going to have a research, and it's very hard to tell. But we're not going to work with churches. Don't worry, it's okay. And they said, we don't know, you know, it's so complicated, you know. I'm going to be responsible for that. You do something, you're just freelancers, and then, you know, I'm going to lose my job. And we said, but look at this, you know, previous works. They're so beautiful and sparkling and bright, and we're not going to do anything forbidden. So this dialogue went on for a year. We would come into their office. They said yes. And then they would say no. So we're going back and forth for a year. And then 1 month before the show, we still didn't know whether we could have it or not. So we were actually very upset because, you know, we felt like we're not moving anywhere. We had a show 2 years ago, and now we feel like we're starting over to you know, convince people that what we're doing is good, that it is good for the city, that it's a thing that is necessary to be done, that city will benefit, that it will attract tourists to dormant districts. You know, all the reasons that make sense, all of them were brought up. So in the end, we thought, okay, if we don't get to have a show, we'll just publish as a catalog of a show that never happened all the numerous correspondence and emails with all of the officials. And yes, that will be our show. You know, that will be a project in the public space because, you know, that took place in the public space, in the, you know, virtual sort of realm. But then I said, yes, okay, do it. And I don't know, and we did it. So I will get to more pictures and just tell a little bit about the show and how we outlined the projects in these dormant districts. The problem with St. Petersburg, one of them, is that it has lots of potential which is not being used. For example, this building is a former community center which was built in early 20th century, and it was one of the first kind of Russian community centers for workers where people could come and get informal education. I don't know, playing some instruments or just, you know, general education or something. It was done by a very progressive woman, Sofia Panina. She was, you know, very much ahead of her time, a real kind of philanthropist. So the building also had its own observatory, which was in use. But then during the Soviet era, the building was given to the Russian Railways company. So they closed this observatory. They never used it. And one of the artists, Hans Rosenström, who works a lot with sound, he spotted this place and he decided he wants to reopen this observatory. So he created and it's a beautiful building, actually. It's in hideous conditions. It's fallen apart, but it has a fantastic view. And Hans created a very nice sound piece upstairs. So bringing it there, we opened kind of a new venue for the people, and the audience was really blown away with this piece because it also it was a process. You step into the building, you go upstairs all the way, you see this building that is fallen apart, and it's beautiful and it's ugly at the same time, and you also discover some new spot in the city, and you discover some new spot to look at it, because normally when you go somewhere on the top in St. Petersburg, it's St. Hyde Cathedral, and you see, all the beautiful center. But from here, you just see the industrial part, which is giving you a different look at the city. So, something like that, for instance. And the piece was so much loved by the audience that we actually negotiated with this railways company about opening this observatory at least once in 2 weeks or something, just to have it as an open spot for the people to come and see the city from the top. Another piece was dealing with the library, and libraries in Russia, like everywhere, I guess, are becoming this kind of third places, not only book storages, but also platforms for communication of different social groups, of people with families, of elderly people, or students. So you can come to the library to study, or to meet your friends, or just, get some computer skills, stuff like that. So Swedish artist Annika Eriksson, she just decided to put this text on the top of the building, which says, between the covers of these books, between the walls of these buildings, between the covers of these books. So she wanted to kind of catch the attention of passers-by to the library. And another piece we had was a smaller copy of a planned piece, actually. Big van der Pol, I don't know whether any of you heard of them. They're a very famous Dutch artist duo, working a lot with the public space. So their idea was to recreate the Radio Orator. It's a model of kind of a propaganda booth, first created by Gustav Klutzes in the 1920s, and it was used in the streets of Moscow as a, kind of a propaganda speaker. So Big van der Pol wanted to create a huge, large-scale booth like that and put it in the very center of Cucina. But due to lack of funding, we just had to, deal with a smaller copy. So their idea was to put it in a public space and use this board up here for stickers, so that people could come and speak up their mind. So again, we're dealing here with this, freedom of speech issue, which keeps being repeated in our show for some reason. So many artists, when they think of Russia, turn to this problem. And I think in the next show, we're going to probably, some of them will want to deal with this again. It's a very recurring kind of topic. We knowing the Russian audience as curators, didn't expect the audience to participate and love the piece, actually, because we know that traditionally Russian audience is very passive. And when I compare it to German audience, and I talk to my friends about it, what you first notice about the German audience is that it's very attentive to details, very curious. What I see people, when they watch a video, they actually watch a video, and watching a video in a museum space is an effort. You have to come and see, you sit down, it takes some time. So, and people read all of the explications, they really get into things. And this audience is very diverse, also age-wise, because in Russia, people who go to contemporary art shows are normally young people, because it's hip, it's cool. So elderly people or people who are like, I don't know, not so young, just skip contemporary art shows. So bringing this very piece to the library, where the visitors are normally, middle-aged and middle-aged plus, was quite risky for us, because we didn't know how they would react. But in fact, their reaction was very good, because we had so many comments about what's happening in the neighborhood, and people were doing really interesting proposals and comments, and they would be saying, well, we don't really like our local administration right now, so maybe if they don't clean the streets, we should do that. So this is my number. If you want to participate, call me. And we actually know that some people really got together and did something. Some of them planted some flowers, or some of them just became friends or something. So this actually worked as a message board, and it was quite a successful piece, which is still there in the library, and it's going to travel through all of the libraries in the area. Doris, please remind me if I have some time left, because okay. Another piece was related to this ugly construction fence. A huge shopping mall was built, and the construction fence never disappeared. So when we were doing the research, we met one local artist in the area, and he said, "You know what? I'm so tired of this fence. People pee on it. They just, they just put garbage around it. It's so ugly. Every morning I look at it and I don't know what to do with it. If I could, I would paint it gold. Maybe if it would be beautiful, people wouldn't pee so much on it and wouldn't just throw trash around it." We said, okay, let's see what we can do. So we invited these graffiti painters, Das Bugs, who started a workshop of graffiti and engaged the local audience, mainly children, into turning this fence into something just more colorful and bright. So they didn't cover all of it with the spray paint, but they did some of it. And it really came out nice. We had many children who took part in doing the graffiti. And then actually the project had its effect, because in the end the local municipality said, okay, fine, we're removing this fence, don't worry, it's not going to be there anymore. So that was an example of how a very small thing can work into something bigger and can bring some results. We also wanted to work with institutions that are about to change, because many of these, cultural centers, community centers that I'm talking about are very outdated. They've been there since the Soviet time, and nothing has changed much. And it's a pity, because actually they have a lot of potential and resources that are not being used. So we were thinking about how to engage these resources, about how to use this potential and make the centers actually likable and interesting for people again. So we worked with one cinema theater. I'll just skip front and show it to you. Not a very big picture, but and it's a typical universal kind of building. There's a shop, there is a office that produces plastic windows, there is a furniture shop, what is not, hairdresser, I'm sure there should be one or something. And there's also a small cinema theater in this building. And they didn't have any visitors, and they're one of the last state cinema theaters in the area. And they were struggling, really. They were, okay, we're going to do an art house program. And nobody would actually go to this art house program, because nobody needs it in a dormant districts, because people think, in Cucina, an art house movie, it's not happening. It's just something wrong with it, So, but these guys, cinema theater guys, were very eager, and they are really trying to transform themselves into a center for documentary cinema, which I think is a great idea. So, Jonna Rajkowska, a fantastic artist, we were very lucky to have her in the show. I love her work. She's really great. She decided to produce this neon, which is actually an homage to Dziga Vertov. If you know about him, he's a very famous Soviet filmmaker, definitely a figure. So he has this masterpiece, Man with the Movie Camera. So what Jonna did, she found his, notes for the film and this frame chart for the film in the Vienna Film Museum. And this is the draft for the very last shot, for the very last frame in the movie, which depicts the director himself being a very small figure and standing on a huge camera. And it's like a classical shot. And she said, when I first arrived to Cucina, Joanna said that, and I found myself, surrounded by these huge, ugly buildings. As an artist, I felt how limited my possibilities are. And so this feeling was so strong that she also decided to connect that to this little piece that she created in this movie theater. This is also permanent work, so it's going to stay there. So we very much hope that when the movie theater is going to be transformed into a documentary film center, it's going to be there and it's going to be, spotting the place. I can't believe I have such small pictures here. Okay. Well, critical mass is not only critical because we deal with, problems that overwhelm the society currently, but also because we're trying to be critical here, and many artists can be rather harsh. The piece by Asa Komarova, a Russian-born artist who now lives in the Netherlands, was actually related to the problem of elderly people and the pensioners in Russia, who, many of them are living, on the bare of survival. So if you're not supported by your family and if you live only of your pension money, it's really a struggle. You have to always look for some additional sources of support. So many people, especially elderly women, they sell different goods in the subway or near bus stops or something. This is very simple things like mittens that they need, or pickles that they do, or jam or something, very basic stuff that people sell. Mostly because they want to support these women. Because they can, buy the same stuff in the shop. What Asa did, she created these Tshirts which said, "Soon I will become a pensioner." So every person who would, and she would spend a few days standing next to these women, and participating in this illegal trade. So every customer of these women would get a T-shirt that would say, "Soon I will become a pensioner," and that was her way to, attract attention to this problem. So, we're not getting any younger. All of us are going to get pensioners sometime very soon. And if this system doesn't really change much, we're going to end up maybe like that. So that was her main message. What she also did, she worked with the local library, and she found some of elderly readers who would be willing to share their knowledge and skills of, doing these things that they sell, just like knitting or sewing or doing pickles or, knowing some good Russian traditional recipes. So she put a portfolio of every participant, of every person who wanted to participate in the project on the wall in the library, and they left their contact information. So this is how she was trying to connect these people to other readers of the library, younger readers. I don't know, if I want to know how to bake a good cake, I can call Marivanna and, ask her how to do it. Maybe she will be willing to help me. For us, it was a little bit of a utopian thing in the beginning, and I thought, nah, this is not going to happen. Nobody's going to call any of these old ladies, and this is just ridiculous. But it actually worked, because later on, when we had a research after the exhibition, which we always do because we're trying to track the response of the audience, some women told me that actually they were contacted, especially by younger people, and they were in the media, and they were, eager to share what they wanted to do. Some of them even organized some events for the students. So the piece actually brought together people of different generations, which again I think has a very important social meaning. Even it was, on a very small scale, but that was definitely a result that we're proud of. Oh no. Okay, here, yeah. And I think the last one. We were fascinated to learn about activists in this neighborhood. And actually, I must say that this activist movement in Russia is getting much stronger now. And I think one of the reasons for that is that people totally stopped believing that the government is going to change anything for them. So they decided that if they want changes, at least at some smaller level, they will be in charge of that themselves. So we have many very local movements and many activist group of people who just trying to solve some problems on the municipal level. For example, if there's a road that should be mended, or there is a house that is falling apart, or if the garbage is not being taken away, they're just trying to make local municipalities change it. And so far, there's this movement, for example, a beautiful Petersburg, which is working quite well. It's one guy who started some time ago, and they really managed to fix some things, which actually led to change in the process of how you can, complain about something, and how you can track this complaint, and how the things you're asking about to be fixed is getting fixed. Also, in Cucina, when we were doing the research, we found one guy who was writing the history of Cucina. He was very interested in what was happening in the area before, and it's dates back to 18th century or even earlier. So he created his own website where he's tracking all of this history. He's collecting documents, archival photos, and various information that builds up to this collecting of history of the neighborhood. This website got so popular that the local municipality actually took all the information from his website and published it as a book, never mentioning the guy. So basically he stole all of his information that he collected over the years and just presented it as his own project, as their own project. Nevertheless, he was a huge source of information for us, and he told us about one family that lived in this neighborhood, and they have a very beautiful and also tragical history, actually, because when the city was being built, when all of this neighborhood was being built with these big houses, there used to be a small village there. So all the people, as they were doing it in the USSR, they were said that they have to leave their wooden houses and move to some other place. They were given some other housing. Because their village is going to be demolished and new block buildings are going to be built here. Most people left, and only one family said, we're not going anywhere. This is our house and we want to stay here. It was 1971. So the mother of this family, she said, I'm not going anywhere, and she would stay until the policeman came, and gunpinned her and made her leave this house. So they moved to another part of the city, but every year on 8th of March, they meet in this neighborhood at the place where this where the house used to be standing, and commemorate this event, because it's important for him. This is how they track the history of their family and how this is how they preserve it. So the family is getting bigger. So each year, more and more people with their younger children, they're coming to this spot to celebrate the memory of their family. And one of the artists, Gareth Kennedy, the Irish artist, he learned about this from this guy, Denis Shalapin, who created this website, and he decided to work with this story and involved local vocational school and local secondary school into creating this big, very large-scale project. So what they did, they made this huge frame, which they carried through the entire neighborhood, and they put it at this place where this house used to stand. And they also used a lot of birch wood, like a symbol of the, Russian. We talked about it yesterday, I think, with Zhanna, how birch wood became so symbolical for Russia. But anyways, Gareth decided to work with this material, and they also created this costumes for the children. So they were traveling throughout the neighborhood wearing this birch costumes and with a flag saying the last wooden house of Cucina. And then in a very celebrational way, they put it to the place where this last wooden house was destroyed. The sad thing is that no new house was actually built on this place, because when they demolished this old house back in the 70s, they realized that nothing can be built there because the stream underneath is so close that you can't build a huge block house there. So, nothing would have happened if they just left this small wooden house in that place. So also very typical for the Soviet history. I'm sure there are many facts like that happening in the Soviet Union back then. So this is just very briefly about what we're doing and how we're working with the. I'm just trying to find an end. I can't. And how we're dealing with the public space, and I'll be happy to say more, maybe in the general discussion when we get to it. And now I think I can just pass the word to Andrea so that she could talk about the project that she's doing here in Düsseldorf. Yeah? Thank you. Thank you.